What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Blood Splatter Chatter. My name is Verno. I've got the Daywalker Link and Mr. Stu with me. And tonight we're talking about a fun one, man. This is one I'm really excited to show both of you a first-time watch for both my fellows on the panel here. We're doing De Palma's Blowout from 1981, starring John Travolta, Nancy Allen, John Lithgow, which I hope you guys were surprised when he popped up in this movie. And and the dude, maybe you guys know his name. It's like Franz something. The dude from NYPD Blue. He's worth throwing in there. You guys know his name?
Dennis Franz. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a movie. Like when I mentioned it to you guys, both of you were like, I never even heard of it. I thought I'd heard of all the Travolta movies, even in De Palma's catalog. It's kind of one that doesn't get spoke about quite as much. But when you look at like the trajectory of both of their careers, it's kind of like right in a hot spot of it. This is right after Saturday Night Fever. It's right after Urban Cowboy for John Travolta. De Palma had just come off Carrie and Dressed to Kill, which are two of his biggest movies. But I don't know. It's one it's a bit of a hidden gem for having some really big ass names in it. And
Yeah, I never heard of this. That was very shocked. I was like, what? How have I never, like between Travolta and De Palma, like I was literally, I can't believe.
I feel like I say this all the time, but it's like it's Amazon Prime. Amazon Prime is like where I go and like get recommended a bunch of like deeper cut 80s movies that I end up enjoying. That's kind of my main my go-to streaming site or streaming app for older 80s movies. Like Max kind of has the newer shit. They've kind of got the more premium stuff. You get the deeper cuts on Prime. But what was I going to say? Oh, a couple of the influences of this, just from because I'm looking at why isn't this a bigger thing? It's got a 7.4 on IMDb, which is like fourth on John Travolta's list and De Palma's list. So it's like two of their highest reviewed movies for both of them, which is awesome. And it's I think it's just because it doesn't really fit in a genre. It's not horror, right? Like it's got horror elements to it. It's kind of like making meta commentary on horror movies as they're going through it. The whole thing is making meta commentary on filmmaking in general. But I think one of the reasons might be that it doesn't get quite the respect. This movie called Blow Out. There's a 1966 movie called Blow Up, which is pretty much the same thing. And De Palma even admits like he took the premise from that and switched it up a little bit to make it fit a sound editor's profile. In Blow Up, it's a photographer that he's got a picture and he zooms in on, he blows it up and he sees a shooter in the bushes. And it leads this guy.
De Palma did Scarface, right?
Yeah.
How many of his films are remakes then? Now that we're talking,
it's a big thing on his whole career. It's not just like remakes, but taking kind of obvious elements from other people. Like there's a lot of Hitchcock in this. There's Argento. There's a lot of, and these other films that we're talking about, because there's another one called I hope I don't mess this up. The Conversation, which won the Academy Award.
I was just about to say, like, this one really reminded me of that.
Have you seen that one?
Yeah, Francis Ford Coppola, where Gene Hackman's recording he's doing like sound recording in the park, and he picks up on a conversation he shouldn't, hears things he shouldn't, and it kind of goes from that. So it definitely, especially with him, with De Palma coming from that fraternity of filmmakers with Coppola and Spielberg and Scorsese and all them, it definitely like felt like he lifted a page from Coppola with the Conversation. That's the first thing, like that bridge scene where Travolta's recording all that action. I was like, man, this feels like the Conversation. Something's about to happen.
That's one that I wish I would have had a chance to check out before doing this review, just because they get compared to so much. It's only 2 years prior, such similar premises. Supposedly this one, and you've seen it, so you would know, but this one's more of a thriller, and the other one's more of like a slow burn kind of a thing. And this one's got a little bit more action to it. But clearly, I mean, it's Francis Ford Coppola. It won the 1978 Best Picture Award at the Academy Awards. The Conversation did. So something definitely worthy of checking out. And then just looking into it right before we got rolling, when I was looking into Blow Up a little bit, I'm like, oh, shit, this is the guy. The guy that stars in Blow Up is the lead guy from Argento's Deep Red, which came out in 75. Which is kind of cool. Here's the cool thing to me. Like when you look at, okay, if he took the idea Blow Up, but the title Blow Out, it's still super creative to tie in those two things, because the blowout has something to do with the plot of this movie that has nothing to do with the plot of that movie, but the way that they still, like, you know, the wordplay still works. I was like, that's a clever ass little deal that they came up with.
It's inverted. He almost inverted, you know, I guess, if you will.
And then the other thing I wanted to mention before we get, what the hell was the other thing? Oh, I guess I just wanted to get into touch on De Palma's career. This is the second De Palma film that we've done. We did Sisters for Horror Fest last year, which is way deeper. Another one of his movies that just nobody knows. Robbie had never heard of it when we talked about it last year. I love it. It's another flawed film. Another one that Criterion picked up. Criterion made a Blu-ray of this, so they picked it as one of the important films worthy of restoring and highlighting or whatever. But Steph, I know we talked about Sisters. You've talked about Dressed to Kill on Robbie's channel. What's your overall, just your feel for De Palma, your fandom for the guy? I know he's a little bit divisive. Some people hold him way up high, and some people not so much.
I respect him. Even with the films that aren't, you know, classics, you can tell there's an artistry to him. You know, you can tell he's going for something, even if it doesn't quite land. I guess he kind of swings for the fences. Like, you know, he just kind of does, you know, what he's interested in, what genre it might be, taking whatever influences he might want. Kind of that, like I said, I respect that, as opposed to, like we were just talking about In a Violent Nature last episode, and it's a good example of where they didn't swing for the fences. You know, it's like if you go for it and even doesn't land, I still respect you, because at least you tried something.
It's funny that you say that. Just real quick, it's funny that you say that, because I was thinking about In a Violent Nature while watching this. One of the camera things that we talked about, no spoilers for In a Violent Nature, but one of the camera things is when they're circling the campfire and they're going round and around. And I wish I had said it during the review. I'm like, what's the point? Does it work? The real question is it helping tell the story? And in that case, it's no. And in this movie, there's 2 or 3 times where the camera is circling and doing that, but it's to show how disoriented Travolta is.
And I love that.
He's panicking.
That 360 pan is such a hallmark of his. It reminded me, it was done really well in the Daredevil Netflix series when the Bullseye character kind of had like his complete mental breakdown, and like you see him just smashing shit throughout the room, but it's told in that like disorienting 360 pan style. I love that that technique, and I thought it was used especially well here with like him finding out that all his tapes have been blanked out and recorded over and all that stuff.
And then they do it again a little bit later when he's in the train station and Nancy Allen's going off with John Lithgow, and all of a sudden he's panicking and they're circling again. It's stuff like that. There's people that are like, I don't know, let's just fucking do something. And there's people that are thinking everything through, and they're doing everything for a reason when it comes to that.
Yeah. I since we're talking about cool, like things he was doing within the film, I want to throw it out there before I forget it. It's kind of towards the end. But when Travolta kind of realizes he's too late and everything's in slow motion, I thought that was cool, because it's like, no matter how fast he ran, you know, the distance he was, it might as well have been slow mo. He might as well have been in slow motion. There's a lot of interesting things going on in this film. But I will say that I respect De Palma, but I think I've seen a lot of more commercial films of his, because there's a bunch for the last couple of years. I was like, I didn't even know that was a thing, like Sisters, you know?
Yeah.
Who did Dressed to Kill?
He did. Yeah. The year before this.
Okay. I got a lot of vibes of Dressed to Kill with this one too. And
definitely
in a good way. I think they did a little bit. I enjoyed it more. I wouldn't say they did it better, but I enjoyed aspects like the whole, how the son was like what was he in Dressed to Kill? He was like some.
I was gonna ask you that, man. Yeah, because there's all these scenes in Dressed to Kill where he's into some kind of tech thing. I think he's a video guy. He's into like filming things because he's filming his parents or something. Yeah, but clearly De Palma's like into like the technical aspects of things, and like the stuff they're doing in this movie, that's like really high tech shit in 1980. I feel like it's supposed to be a little bit more impressive and like, wow, look at the technology at the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you see, like, I think you see a lot of his like those techniques that came to be so synonymous with his name, like the split screen, like those shots where you have the like the close up of the frog and then Travolta in the background, and like the same thing with the owl, like
split diopter lens.
Yeah, right. That good. I'm glad you have the technical name, because I was like, man, me trying to handle these technical terms in this show is going to be fun. But yeah, dude. And again, I think it's so Hitchcockian of him, but at the same time, it's his own thing, and I just love that exploratory sense you get with this film. Like, he's trying to find his way, and he's trying out new things. Like, that's what I love about De Palma, though. He always keeps it interesting with like style and technique and screenshots and like what he's given to you on screen and holding your attention. The whole like film, regardless of what was going on, it always felt like this creeping sense of paranoia and dread. Like, I love I know it's like kind of cliche now, but like all the shots that we get of like where it feels like these characters are being watched, you know what I mean? And I don't know, just going back to the beginning of the film, I guess is a good segue to hand it back to you, Verno. Like the faux horror movie.
Yeah.
Beginning.
What did you guys think? What did you guys think
that.
right there? Were you like, before they revealed that that's not the actual movie, it's a movie within the movie? When I'm watching it, I'm like, whoa, okay. I'm like, De Palma made like a cheesy 80s slasher. Let's go. Yeah. And then they out, I'm like, they're like, no, this is a real movie.
I was right there with you, man. I was right there with you. And then it's like some of the like that voyeuristic camera angles feel like, all right, the chick would have seen him by now, right? Like something started to feel slightly off as the scene went on, but it was like, yeah, man. At the beginning, it felt right in tune right there with like the horror movies of his time, but I didn't know it was like it was a tongue-in-cheek shot at them.
There's a stab, the guy just goes down. I'm like, oh wow, he's going for like full cheese. But I was honestly like, for a split second, I think I was disappointed. I was like, oh, okay, we're gonna get like a regular movie. But it's that scene. There's a few aspects of elements of this movie that I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, this belongs in a horror YouTube channel conversation, right? It's part of the conversation. That scene and the fact that it's all like kind of based around an 80s horror movie and just like the guy works in 80s horror, the fact that there's a serial killer, the one scene we get with John Lithgow, like the first murder that we see, that and then the fact that I had something else that I was gonna fucking say. Just that there's a certain, I guess it mostly is the Lithgow stuff and the serial killer stuff. But speaking of the style, just like a couple scenes that I wanted to point out, talking about De Palma's style. There's certain scenes that you could have just done. They could have done nothing. It could have just like, they didn't have to do that. He'll add in like the super stylistic thing that just like, that's what makes a great film, or just something feel like a singular experience. But like one that comes to mind, when John Lithgow and Nancy Allen, they're on the train and they're taking off, and Travolta's like trying to catch up to him, and he's running down, and then you see the camera is in the train, and like it pans up, and it's like you might not even notice it because it was so smooth. But that could have easily not been, it could have just been a throwaway shot. Travolta didn't have to be in the background. They didn't have to show it at all. Another one, when Lithgow is doing the first murder and the camera pans from all the way down, like in this mine area or this construction site, it pans up. We see then Nancy Allen walking. I'm like, oh, it's not Nancy Allen that was murdered. And then it goes up to the window, and it's got NYPD Blue guy up there. And it's like, that is so, to me, I love that shit. I think there's certain people that would be like, whatever, I don't have the time for that. Or they just don't. Like, to me, like, you can have a lot of plot holes like this movie does, and shit like that will make up for it a lot. It'll go a long way to make me ignore the shit that,
because you thought for sure she got murdered right there, right? And then finding out that she didn't, just like, and granted, that could have been a lot more clear, I think, in hindsight, and like we'll get to the whole serial killer narrative that they tried to kind of like weave in here, but like, right at the same time, I love that nuance, and the way that whole murder scene was done, I thought was fantastic, man. With the lights and the billboard and all that.
Props to John Lithgow, his character, though, because that whole time they're tumbling down the hill, I think my man did not let go of that grip.
I thought
it was so funny. Like, and the fact that something that was a little bit funny to me is that there's all these people standing around. They're like downtown
at the fucking bus stop. Like, she was like the last of 14 people to get on that bus. He's just gonna drag her away and nobody notices.
Right.
Like,
it's so silly.
Like a lot of that going on in this film.
Too good and saying plot hole like a Giallo film. Exactly. And that's another thing. Like I feel like I'm always crediting Italian Giallo films as being these movies that popularized, or like it's something that's a little bit silly about their movies. There'll be a random person that witnesses something and all of a sudden they're obsessed with solving the crime. And we definitely get that in this. But now that I've dove into Hitchcock in the way that I have, and I watch Rear Window, I realized like, oh, that was a Hitchcock thing. That's James Stewart looking out the window, seeing a crime, and now he's obsessed with it. Which obsession is something that runs through, like, you can't believe this movie if you don't believe that Travolta is going to get obsessed with this. And I don't, we can kind of get into that as we go. Like, there's times where I'm like questioning his motivation, but I do that in all these procedural thrillers of the time. It's like, why does he care so much? But he's sick of being fucked by the man, is what it boils down to.
Exactly. Like I love that part where he's like, I bet you got underpaid too. She's like, what does that have anything to do with it? He's like, I'm sick of getting fucked by these. He's just fed up.
They fuck you at the sound recording studio. They
statement. What do you say to the dude to the police station? Because the cop had said something to him. I resent that.
Right. What was with that cop? It's like either you're in on it or you're not. And I did not get the vibes he was in on it, but god damn it, was he acting like he was in on it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was so weird.
So true.
To me, that was one of the, and we'll get into it deeper, but that's one of the things that, like, I feel like it was lacking, is us getting a little bit more of a glimpse. If they're going to show us anything of the people that are behind all this, show us a little bit more. I feel like unless I missed some of it, all we really got was when we see those people at the hospital and when they call John Lithgow, the guy on the other, hey, you weren't supposed to kill him. You're what the fuck? But and I hated that too. Like, don't be like, oh no, this was all just some rogue serial killer or some rogue assassin or agent guy. Like, that wasn't really their plan, which kind of takes it a little away from the conspiracy.
So was John Lithgow going not off script, but was he just kind of doing shit he wanted to do under the guise that I'm a hired hitman for you guys?
That's the way I read it. And at first I'm like, because he's trying to just like cover it up, like, oh, I'm gonna tie her murder to a series of sex killings in the area, which that's fucking really dark if you think about it, because he's not just killing these women, they're sex crimes, and he's billing them as that. So what else is he doing to these bodies? And he's just doing to tie up some loose ends. Go ahead and real quickly before we dive into the movie, we'll talk a little bit more about Travolta, but just like we said, not a lot of people have seen this. It is worth just me real quickly setting up the premise where we have John Travolta. He's a sound guy for shitty 80s horror movies, like these B horror movies. And he's out one night recording sound, and he's an ear witness to what turns out to be an assassination on a presidential candidate. And I've said it. I almost wish I didn't have to say it at the end of the last couple episodes to give you clues, Steph, as to what the plot of this movie was. But I picked this movie fucking weeks ago. I'm in no way trying to profit or get clicks or likes or views off of the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. I'm definitely not doing that. But when it happened, I was like, that's kind of interesting. what timing? Yeah. Just the fact that I picked this movie before the assassination. Make that perfectly clear. He's saying, whoa, that's just a bit different than the Lithgow I remember from Harry and the Hendersons or Third Rock from the Sun, but similar to the one that we see in Dexter. Very similar to him. But let's touch on Travolta a little bit before we get into this thing, man. Travolta, he worked with De Palma on Carrie. Him and Nancy Allen were in Carrie 4 years prior to this. Nancy Allen, by the way, for those that don't know, was the wife of De Palma at this time. They divorced a few years after this film, and then she showed up in RoboCop, and we just talked about RoboCop on PCP movie night. But god damn, like watching those other De Palma films, and then seeing her in the role that I really know her from my childhood, couldn't be any more different. And it makes all of it a little bit more impressive. But as far as Travolta goes, I mean, for me, man, I love that fucking guy when I was a kid. You know what I mean? Like we loved Grease. We loved Urban Cowboy even. I loved Welcome Back, Kotter. Look Who's Talking Now was probably my first introduction to that.
So
Pulp Fiction, so many fucking huge movies. If Robbie ever does another Crew's Choice type event, like where they focus in on a star, I think he'd be an interesting guy. That's a conversation we should have. Who should Robbie pick if he's going to pick anybody? And Travolta would be a good one. Leo would be a good one too. I was thinking that yesterday when we were talking about it. But so many, man, so many great ones. But what do you think in general, brother, of Travolta, Link?
Overall, just as his career, or just
just any of his movies that stand out to you, or whatever.
I'm with you. My first Travolta experience was probably Look Who's Talking, which I think all those movies are absolute gems, very underrated.
I love that shit so much. When I was a kid, it's perfect. It's perfect for a kid.
Yes. And then the third one, you introduce the dog element, so it's like you got babies and animals talking. Like, come on. But I do remember seeing, like, being very. I didn't know the feeling for it at the time as a kid, but I had seen my parents. I guess it was the 90s, but I did see Pulp Fiction as a kid. So to see John Travolta in that, and then to see him in Look Who's Talking, I was always very confused. Like, I didn't, because they were so lighthearted. In Pulp Fiction, he's getting shot in the toilet. But Michael, I remember seeing like Michael.
Yeah, I was about to say
shit like
Phenomenon.
Phenomenon.
Is it phenomenon or phenomena? What is it?
Phenomena.
I think it's phenomenon.
Yeah.
But no, I've always liked Travolta. He's gotten a little corny the last couple years, but there was a certain point where Travolta, he's definitely got some bangers to his name. I don't know, he's almost trying to do. It's funny because they're both in Face Off, but it's like he's almost like as zany, as crazy as Cage, but there's just something where Cage can pull it off.
What was the one we were talking about last night with Hugh Jackman, where he played the hacker and
Swordfish?
Oh, Swordfish was badass, dude.
Yeah,
I liked him in Thomas Jane, 2004.
Dude, how crazy is it that we just talked about a Nicolas Cage movie this week? I know I said this to both you guys, but it's worth pointing out. Nicolas Cage last week, Travolta this week, Face Off next week. You heard it here first. No, I wish.
Good.
I think
Travoltage was perfect in this movie. Hell yeah, bro. What up, Soul Cal Dan?
I think he's in due for a career revival. I think he's still. If you just got to find, like, if you get into like another Tarantino movie or something like that, I could think you could see like another career revival, which not like his third one, not many episodes.
He's 70 now, so I mean, but he can still do it. He's not beyond doing it. He's got new movies coming out. He's still doing stuff, but they are getting like, you're starting to not hear about him, when they come out. He's come out with quite a few movies in the last few years. Actually, he's got one coming out called That's Amore. But yeah, I mean, he's one of those guys. They're getting to. I'm looking at his movie. I haven't heard of the majority of the movies he's put out in the past 10 years. But what about you, Stu? Just him in general.
Yeah, man. I don't know. He was great in this role. I thought if we're talking this role, I thought he was fantastic. I love this is that full-on blue-eyed charm is on display here. I think he really carries the film, especially opposite Nancy Allen. I think they could have done a way better, stronger casting with the female lead for this.
I was wondering what you guys would think about that.
Dude, I think that makes perfect sense. Like, after the fact, that knowing that she was with De Palma this time, because I felt like that was my biggest gripe probably with this movie, is like, if we had a female lead who could really meet him with like the emotional stakes and like kind of getting romantically involved with this guy and having feelings for him, I think it would have been a much heavier experience, particularly at the end when she has when she leaves us with Travolta and all that. However, dude, he's a legend. It's interesting too. I learned a lot about his history with De Palma watching this movie. Like, that Carrie was one of his first roles, and he got cast again through this, and being on this is what got him Pulp Fiction with Tarantino. And it's just interesting how it's interesting, dude. Tarantino loves this movie, man. There's a million coked up clips of him like fucking.
He thinks it's one of the. To him, I think he said it's like his number 3 favorite movie of all time. Yeah, says it's De Palma's best movie. He also says he thinks De Palma's the greatest filmmaker of his generation. and then it's like, damn, really? Like over all
Wow,
those
that's
like
crazy.
all those other guys, but I could see it. Looking at Tarantino, it's like, yeah, your taste. I could see you liking that.
I can say, like, I don't know. He just feels too kind of stuck in some of like his voice doesn't feel original enough to me at the end of the day to put it like above folks like Coppola, Spielberg, and Scorsese. Like if we're talking about people like other directors of his class,
right?
However, he's definitely like he's definitely up there. You know what I mean? I just don't think like when it comes to completely original voices, and especially like guys who've had a career, a more, I guess, complete career. Like De Palma's kind of disappeared in the past 20 years, man.
Right.
We really haven't seen him in much. So, but
plus,
yeah,
for me, if I'm being, even a lot of his big movies that people love, they're not like I just watched when we did Sisters last year. I watched a couple of his movies leading up to it that I didn't love back in the day that I'm like, oh, maybe I will love them now. I'm still not that big of an Untouchables fan. I'm not that big of a Scarface fan. It's like one of my least favorite of the big gangster movies. And he's got a lot of
Carlito's Way is untouchable to me.
I've never actually seen that.
Oh
if I can
that,
say that. His thriller
like, everybody
stuff
talks about Scarface, but to me, Carlito's Way is like the perfect
Michelle Pfeiffer, bro.
Michelle Pfeiffer, but also it's just like that whole story of him getting out of jail, trying to find redemption, and Sean Penn, the white boy lawyer who's doing too much coke, who's never led a gangster lifestyle, who wants to emulate that and be something he's not, is the one who ends up sinking the ship for him. I thought that was, I don't know, that whole dichotomy and like all the bit players in that. Yeah, dude, Michelle Pfeiffer, of course, is unbelievable. That to me, Carlito's Way is probably my favorite De Palma film. But yeah, I'm sorry, I got way off track.
No, you're good.
Travolta in this is incredible. I think he definitely carries the movie. Like I said, I would have liked to seen a stronger female lead opposite him, but yeah, man, homeboy's in the prime of his career right here.
Well, let's touch a little bit more on Nancy Allen. Let's just get her out of the way now, because that's definitely something I was going to bring up to you. I kind of love her. I'm like, oh, this is so cool. She's so different, but her voice, she's doing this like really like fucking weird voice. It's just too much at times. What's interesting, if you read reviews of this, like especially ones at the time too, she was heavily praised for her role in this movie. Like she was like one of the big standouts. Like people ate it up. And I wonder if there's something about us knowing her from other things, or it's like, I don't know. But I'll say the same thing with, I keep on messing the guy's name up. Will you say it one more time? NYPD Blue guy. What's his name?
Dennis Franz.
Dennis Franz. Yeah. His accent, I guess I'm just used to it because he's been doing that shit forever. But they're both in the same exact boat for me. Like, is this good acting? Or are these fucking accents that are fucking terrible? You know what I mean? I don't know. I put them both in that same boat, but I thought it was interesting how much love she got at the time. What did you think of her stuff?
I mean, I guess that's what she was going for. I don't know. It felt a little exaggerated, you know, compared to. I don't know. I don't want to. Maybe that's why I said maybe they just didn't have chemistry together because he was the lead and they just. I don't know. But
he's the one that talked De Palma into using her, by the way. Travolta, it's his wife and everything, but Travolta's the one like, no, you got to use Nancy. Like they're all buddies and shit. And De Palma, he's like, no, I don't want to typecast her as my actress. You know what I mean? And the way that we're all thinking of it in our head, he was trying to avoid that. Travolta's like, fuck it, she'll be fine.
It's funny. I saw some article that said like he appears in 3 or 4 of De Palma's films and gets like brutally murdered in every one. I thought
that's funny. That's hilarious. That's the same thing Stuart Gordon does. He puts his wife in films and kills her every time. That's hilarious. Yeah. He gets her naked too in a few of them. He treats her like a little whore, to be honest with you. What a dick.
Yeah,
I think she liked it. Oh my god, he said that online, Verno. Piece of shit. All right, let's go. We'll touch on. Let's get into this bad boy. We'll touch on the music later. We'll get into Pino Donaggio, who he did the score for this one. The music is fire, and he basically De Palma came out right off the gate. He got Hitchcock's composer. He had Bernard Herrmann for some of his first few movies, for Sisters, and I think another one. But then he passed away, and then he got this guy Pino Donaggio, who worked on the majority of his films, or most of Panaggio's biggest films are with De Palma for sure. And then he did a handful of other things. But we'll touch on that as we go. I am curious, though. Here's my take on the movie. I watched it the first time, and I'm like, I'll be like, it's like a 3.5. That was my takeaway. And mainly because I'm like, this is hard to follow. That keeps on. There's two interesting things that like famous people have said that I kept thinking about with this movie, or that I think about all the fucking time. Tarantino talked about how stories used to, and now I realize what a fan of this movie he is. So it's kind of interesting. He's like, American stories have lost. They're too predictable now, and they used to unfold. A story would unfold, and just like the way he used that phrase, like I get what he's saying. Like you kind of never know where this movie's going to go. It keeps on like, oh, whoa, right. I wasn't quite expecting that, and it makes it a little bit of like, wait, what the fuck is going on at times, and it's kind of hard to follow. But another thing I think about all the time is Trey Parker from South Park. This is just a reel that I've come across a couple times where he's talking about when writing stories, they're always trying to replace their and thens with buts or therefores, which what that means is when he goes from scene to scene, he never wants to have a scene happen and then this happened. It always has to be therefore, like this happened and therefore this happened. But you needed this one to get it to happen, or but this happened. Something happened and then pump the brakes, something bad happened that fucks up the plan. And when watching this movie, there's a lot of unfolding, but there's a lot of and thens too. Like as I'm thinking about it, there's a lot of like, just like, okay, it's like, it makes it stilted pacing. Yeah. But it was interesting to think about. But the style just fucking blows me away. The performances and what the story is, the plot and the premise. I was like, whoa, this is so cool. Like I'm thinking the other movies, it was a presidential assassination involved. And for me, I'm always kind of a sucker for shit like that. Like, oh, the president's involved. Oh, you know what I mean? Like, just why not go big? Why not like go all the way to the top? But I mean, I love the movie the second time I watched it. Once I, didn't have to worry about putting all the pieces together, just sit back, enjoy the style, enjoy the performances, and enjoy the twists and the turns that it's given me. I thought it was fucking awesome. But it has issues that I think will be fun to kind of pick apart. But I definitely enjoy the movie even more than I thought I did when I originally picked it to do. But Steph, first time watch for you. Overall, man, what did you think of it?
It was interesting. There was some cool. It reminded me of, like I said, Dress to Kill. I think just done a little bit better. I would say. I cared about Dress to Kill. I didn't really, the sun was fine, but at the end of the day, I mean, Michael Caine was cool, but I don't know. Maybe I enjoyed John Travolta more in this. Mm-hmm. It was a little hard to follow, but that now that you bring up that whole unfolding term, I guess that is kind of like you're just kind of thrown into the fray, and you're learning shit as it goes along. And these days we get the plot of a movie before we've even seen the movie. So we kind of know what the end game is going to be. But this did have some interesting performances. I definitely appreciated the style in certain shots, like the whole disorienting camera spin when Travolta's like losing his fucking mind and he's rushing back and forth. I like how it's like very subtle at first and it just starts slowly spinning faster. Yeah.
You know what I appreciate about that? I mean, like there's certain I'll criticize Argento. Argento's done these things where you're moving the camera, you're doing all this shit, and like there's nothing really happening within the frame. Like there's a shot in Tenebrae that everyone praises, and I'm always like, you could have done way fucking more with it. They timed it out so where Travolta keeps on coming into frame at different times while it's going. Like it was choreographed really well. It wasn't just sloppy.
Yeah, well, very well choreographed. I do think a lot of the crux of this is kind of hinges on Travolta's relationship with Nancy. But they don't really have any chemistry, so I think it hurts the film a little bit because you brought it up earlier. It kind of like it makes you question his like, why are you so invested in this? Like what because the relationship with the girl doesn't really work too much, they don't have too much chemistry, so it doesn't really strengthen it.
I agree too, because you don't buy the love story. Because he's so fucking irritated with her. Here's an interesting thing. He was suffering from really bad insomnia during the shoot. And it's supposedly like it hampered his mood and affected the performance, or he used it. He like put it into the performance, and you could see that he's like a dick. Like you sit down, we're gonna figure this out. It's like he's her boss and shit. Like he treats her really badly, but that's what makes you like he might love her, but she doesn't seem into him. Yeah, they don't seem into each other. I agree, 100%.
But and then I get, I am confused about the whole John Lithgow thing, because then it's like, all right, these politicians hired this hitman who, I mean, if they're politicians, I'm assuming they're hiring someone who's kind of on the level. But this guy, he's a nutbag. He's like a serial killer that uses this hitman job as a mask. He's a hitman, but he enjoys killing. He's on the inside, he does serial killing. So he's, I don't know. I just felt like
serial killer on the side.
Yes, it's my day job. I'm a hitman. I just felt it was like a little goofy on behalf of like, if this is supposed to be some political thriller. But
I can see that. I can see that. I love it, but I see that it's goofy.
It was 2 times too confusing too. Like by the time we get into the bus or the train terminal, or whatever, and he's choking out old girl in the bathroom stall, it's like, bro, what are we doing here, man? Like, like you got 20 minutes until she's supposed to walk into the train station and meet you, and you're just like I felt like you're just getting this one off like because you can.
Right.
It doesn't even feel like you're trying to help support the narrative that you're trying to build or whatever. Like that's all you're just like hunting. Yeah. Like he's checking the clock and shit. I'm like, all right.
I love it when he's like, but I love when, or not I love, I have an issue with what was the whole big deal? Why didn't Travolta just go with Nancy Allen to see the reporter guy?
Because I was like, bro, you're fucking far away now, and they could be anywhere. You're going to be.
Why did he even have the report? Let's lay it out.
Go and like meet with her in the first place and cause her to miss her train and get the fuck out of town in the first, she could have been free and clear of all this bullshit, but he's the one who kept her there. Like that was like, is he part of this? Like, why is he keeping her there? I don't
right
because he really didn't get anything out of the conversation.
Well,
it was just
that's what I'm saying. There's some sloppy writing in this movie. Okay, they have at the end or towards the end that reporter. I'm gonna lay this out. You guys tell me if this is the way you guys read the movie. The reporter, he meets with John Travolta. John Travolta's like, yeah, I'll give you the tapes. He's like, I want to meet with Nancy. He's like, okay, I'll talk to her. And then instead of just like going there with her and bringing the tapes, he's like, oh, I'll send you, like, I can't go. There's no reason that I could think of why he can't be a part of that meeting and be there with the tapes. I'm not getting fucked over again. It's like, well, I don't, yeah.
Because then when he's running after her in the subway, it's like he's got something where I was like, damn, that's kind of advanced technology for 1980, 81, where as he's running like in an earpiece, and it wasn't some big fucking walkie-talkie or something. Like, what do you have attached to his back? Like a tape? I don't know.
He was doing it in the car too and this is another thing. The first time I watched it, I'm like, whoa, what the fuck? He's working for the police now, and there's flashbacks. Yeah. Like, there's a lot going on, but that's why I said I enjoyed it so much more, because all that stress is gone on the second viewing.
I almost was making that shit when he was talking about how I wired somebody for the police. Like, I thought he was just, I don't know. I don't know. Thought it was
that leads to him not wanting to get fucked over by these guys. He doesn't like the government. He doesn't like the police. These shady people in positions of power that are screwing people over, I guess. But I will say, I'm defended on one side, but I'll talk shit on the other. That's something that he took out of an idea for another movie and put in this movie, is what I read. Like, that scene existed in another movie. He's like, oh, that'll fit perfect here. And he put it, and it feels like it. It does feel
like it does. It feels forced for the character, because it's like John Travolta, like that scene where he goes to the train station and convinces like Nancy to talk to, or Nancy Allen's character to talk to him, and end up missing her train. And then we get that little short story, cool little like crime thriller noir about like his past and how he was, helping these cops like with their wiretap investigation, and the battery got too hot for dude and it ended up killing him. So it's like, did he really learn his lesson? Like what you guys are saying when he sends homegirl in there alone with like somebody like he in the situation he knows is wrong. Did he really learn his lesson? Because it feels like he learned nothing at all, man.
Right.
And if that trauma's really weighing on him, like I don't know, certain parts of like you said, Verno, the certain parts of the storytelling were clunky and they didn't really line up with like other things they were trying to establish.
Right.
That part.
I mean, I guess did he really care about her is a good question. Is because maybe he told himself he did because she was a means to an end because he was obsessed with getting to the bottom of this.
Right.
She connected to so much. She helped him quite a bit. She hadn't talked to the guy, NYPD Blue or dude or whatever. And then he sent her in there tap wired, and she's the reason that she gets killed by John Lithgow because she was ready to dip and shit,
Mm-hmm.
But
100%. Yeah, he got her.
Even
which she's pretty fucked up at the end of it. So maybe at least that lines up.
Even when she goes into Dennis Franz's apartment, she almost gets raped, and like she only gets out of there because she's able to break a bottle on his head. But in the end, they make it seem like that's planned. But is it really? Like he really just like. And every time she went into Homeboy's apartment after the shooting or the governor dying happened, anytime she went into Dennis Franz's apartment, she never felt safe to me. I was just waiting for that guy to do something shady to her.
Yeah,
it felt like he was going to try to choke her out or kill her at any given moment. How did you find me? This and that. Obviously, he left her there in that river to die. Like he wasn't. If Travolta's character hadn't been there, she wouldn't have gotten saved. Out of that water.
Did you guys see the first time I watched the movie? I didn't see him from underneath the bridge leave in that scene. Did you guys both see him? When Travolta, okay, I just missed it. I'm all focused on Travolta diving in the water, and I don't know. I just totally missed the guy. The second time, I'm like, oh fuck, he's right there. The first time I watched the movie, I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, you're telling me there just happened to be a guy taking sound and there's another guy that just happened to be taking pictures in this random spot in this park? But it's like, okay, he had to be in on it.
That was brilliant though. That worked for me because that's like one of those, I don't know, I guess like Hitchcockian devices. I feel like when it's like you show probably not even Hitchcock before that or some other famous director, but you show the audience something that like none of the other characters in the movie know, you know what I mean? And so you're all in on it. You from the beginning that this was a setup that something's foul here. And even like Travolta doesn't know it at first, and he's like finally starting to piece it together, like going to the hospital and then after the fact. But it's like I just love how they gave you that piece of information where something's a foul in the foot, like like you have that knowledge that the actors and the people in the movie don't have. I thought that was cool.
Overall, I think Travolta, I think if you look at it from the aspect that he's just so obsessed with it, it's easier to kind of overlook some of the clunkier aspects of the film, but it really is Travolta's performance that, I think, because I believe his character, like he just wants to, like you said, he's tired over. He just wants his piece of pie. He wants his due. He's just going to get down to the bottom of this. He knows people are trying to, telling him something that's not what's going on. He's like, I'm not an idiot. I know what I saw shit. So he's going to get down to the bottom of it. I believed his obsession, so the performance was really strong. Man, I'm so bewildered that you said like people were praising Nancy's performance. It's bad. Maybe, like I said, I don't think it was bad, but I just don't think they had chemistry together, So I think that kind of stuck out to me.
You know what I was just starting to wonder? Does it have any effect that at certain times, all those scenes that she's with Travolta before he knows the truth, she's acting and she's lying to him. So it's like, maybe that's why she's a little bit more like that. But then I think about her and Franz in the apartment together.
Yeah, even when
she's still like that.
It's like so dumb as a brick. Like,
and was she tape recorded when she went to Franz's apartment? Or she might have?
I don't think so. No.
Okay.
But that would be a good point. That would maybe give her an O. SoCal Dan says Link is on it. The craft and sound and cinematography was De Palma on his game. He also says Verno was on it and he looks great tonight. I don't know where that comment went, but he said it.
I second that.
Thank you, SoCal.
All right.
Thank
Link's the best. Link's the best looking one of us. I understand that.
Dude, I gotta mention this before I forget it. It is. I almost messaged you guys when I noticed it, and then I'm like, I ended up being like, no, don't tell them because it's driving me nuts. Did you guys notice the red and blue at all? It is fucking crazy. I started noticing. I'm like, oh, there's a lot of red and blue in this scene. I'm like, I just always think of Argento immediately, and then I'm looking into a little bit, and I'm like, oh yeah, he has praised Argento for his use of color. It's one thing he's a fan of, and I keep watching the movie. It's like every scene, dude. There's red and blue everywhere. There'll be two people in a scene. One's wearing a red shirt, the other is wearing a blue shirt. It's just constant, dude. The apartment that they go to, it's all red, white, and blue stripes, just on and on and on until the end with the fireworks behind the flag. It's white. I guess it's really red, white, and blue, but it becomes annoying once you notice it. It's like, wow.
It stuck out to me a little. I was gonna say, I remember when he killed the first chick, she's looking up at the billboard, and it seemed very vibrant, red and blue. I know it's United States stuff, but the red and blue definitely popped. And then when he's towards the end of the film, when like the newscasting is, they're talking about Nancy, and I think there's like a red and blue like little symbol in the background of, I think it was the same poster board from the beginning, just on the screen. That's the only time I noticed the red and blue though. But I would be curious to go back and see it.
I'm telling you, here, Steph says he noticed it, or not Steph. Two Gun says I noticed the red stuff. Def, it becomes fucking weird. It's just part of like the set design. Like with Argento, it was the lights, in Suspiria, everything. It's all these red and blue lights. With that, it was just like there'll be a poster, like and you could tell like they went and like did it all on purpose. Like it's very, very purposefully done. So we've touched on quite a bit of what I wanted to get into. Let's touch on the ending, man, which we've already touched on a little bit. That one little fun fact for you, the parade bit, which is another thing I noticed on the second watch show. It's like, oh, they've been setting this up since the beginning of the movie. That first split screen that they do, they're talking about this parade that happens at the end of the movie. But I guess they had went and they filmed the whole thing. They shot this really like complicated scene with all these tons and tons of fucking extras, and then it got stolen. The film got stolen. Either it got stolen out of a vehicle or the vehicle itself got stolen, and it's never been seen again. So they had to go and spend I think $1 million to reshoot the entire thing. The cinematographer was no longer available, so they had to get in a different guy and redo it all. But pretty a
nightmare. That sounds like a fucking nightmare. Jesus Christ. I can't imagine. Can you imagine having the end of your movie stolen like that? Like just,
right.
You get it. That's crazy.
Do you quick question. Do you guys think the movie would have benefited from like knowing more about Lithgow's character?
Yes.
I think it would have benefited from knowing more about that side in general. It doesn't have to just be him. I'd rather know more about the broader conspiracy or know like nothing.
What it's
I
feel like
don't tell me
like why. Yeah, because the scene where he's like talking to the politician dude, and he's like, "Oh, you weren't supposed to do that." It's like, with the outcome of everything, that scene could have easily been left out, and wouldn't really have affected the overall flow or experience of the movie. Because it's like a little breadcrumb, but it's like, well, if you're not going to really get into it or kind of give us a clue as to, or hint as to what's really this conspiracy is all about.
Right.
Why dive into it or mention it?
What do we know? Our only like the face of that organization to us is just that guy on the phone. And he's like this, like, oh, come on, Mr. Serial Killer guy. Like, well, you're fucking everything up. It's like, really? This is like the big bad behind the entire thing. That's pretty lame. And I guess the other people that are part of the cover up at the beginning in the hospital and all that, they're stronger. Like than the one guy that he talks to on the phone. But yeah, I thought that was a major downside. As far as Lithgow himself, I would rather, I guess I would rather just see a bunch more of him and no more of the. He's the only face of the organization. Would make for a cooler movie. Yeah,
and they could have really turned it up to 11 and made it like Lithgow versus Travolta. I thought that would have been like a cooler dynamic.
Yeah, it's gonna be like a thing with them at a certain point. They never really got to that. But with the whole serial killer side thing with Lithgow, like that is kind of interesting. Like a man's professional work is killing people, but he's not satisfied. He's demented. I'm sure there might be some hitmen here who just it's a job to them. It's still fucked up, but for him he wasn't satisfied with just work. So to see more behind his mindset would have definitely benefited the film.
Yeah.
I love that scene where he's in the phone booth, like reporting the death as a serial killer or whatever, and he's also watching, like he's multitasking. You know what I mean? Like it's
he's flexing his skills.
I could have used more scenes like that.
Well, it's so funny. Like people don't know, but we know. We were just talking about him in the back chat, and for some reason he got brought up, and I was like, oh, they don't even know that he's in this movie. I'm not going to say anything. I'm just like, I love John Lithgow. Third Rock from the Sun. I think Harry in that show is one of the most underrated and almost like forgotten comedic performances in any sitcom ever. It was so over the top, and it's like I would put it up there with Kramer as being like one of the best characters in a sitcom.
That's a great call. It really is that aloofness, like absolutely.
Yeah, so crazy. And then he's so creepy too. Like he plays that so well in this. He plays it so well in Dexter season 3 or whatever, which is the first time that I'd ever seen him do, like, I think probably anything other than Harry and the Hendersons. Or
showed up at the man's job. Like, what's up? I'm here for all the smoke, bro.
I know when casted him as what was he called in Dexter? His name.
The Trinity Killer.
Trinity Killer. I almost said Three River Killer.
I remember being so thrown off by that because it was John Lithgow. Has he played a killer in something else? But okay, I maybe not. But I just remember like, oh Jesus, that's kind of dark. Like, because John Lithgow comes off as so like friendly, you know, especially because I like Third Rock from the Sun and certain things. So to see him in Dexter was but now it makes sense seeing this movie, you know.
Right. He did after this. He did right here. Warren Smith says Raising Cain. Is that a De Palma film?
That's a De Palma movie.
Yeah, he did 2 more. He did Obsession too with
Cliffhanger.
Brian De Palma.
Good call, bro.
Oh, Cliffhanger.
He's fucking great in.
I don't remember him in that. What? All I remember is the opening scene of Cliffhanger, to be honest with you.
Fair enough.
Verno knows what's up. Fuck yeah, so kill, Dan. Lithgow made Third Rock good. I fucking knew I liked you. Warren says coolest villain after the Die Hard guy. I can agree. What did I want to say? Well, I guess let's just touch on the ending before we rate this bad boy. I thought I misread it the first time that I watched it. I really did, dude. We see fucking Nancy Allen get killed on top of this thing. I didn't know she was dead because what they show, like that cut on her neck, it looks so whack. And then the very next scene that we see, he's listening to a recording of her. I misread that as like, oh, she's mic'd up again. And it's you. What'd you say? You did too?
No, I said this is a side tangent, but did you find that he used her voice recordings for the scream? Did you find
I love that? To me, that's like one of the best parts of the movie. Like the fact that
but it was
feel authentic to you as a like, bro, you just spent. All right, so does that feel like a logical course?
It seems like a shitty thing to do, but I get what you're saying. But I liked it as far as like it made the whole movie tie together from beginning to end. I get what you're saying.
And it kind of made his
like he was just broken there at the end, like it's a good scream. I was like, bro, what are we doing here? That was crazy. That was crazy.
It kind of is where he left off at the film more poignant, I guess, because he's kind of looks like he's going mad toward, as the film ends, because he's like,
that's why I didn't
a line. He's like, that was a scream.
Here's the way I look at the end, which again I just fucking totally didn't get up. Fable, my brother, what up?
Fable, what up,
I totally just didn't get the end the first time because I thought she lived, and I was like, what is his problem? What is this guy whining about? But I guess the way I read it now is he's just like, there's nothing I can do. They're bigger than me. They killed her, and nobody knows the truth still, and they're never gonna know. And I'm not gonna keep fighting them. They're bigger than me, and I'm just gonna sit here and make my shitty 80s horror movies.
Off it. I'm gonna use this girl got killed audio in a movie because I can't find
we got the scream now, damn it. I almost lost my job before, but hey, I got the scream.
It is super fucked up.
It was crazy to me.
Are there any horror elements to the conversation?
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely with Lithgow's character, there's, like, is he the... All right, so let me think.
No, the conversation.
No, I don't think that's strictly like a... My bad, dude.
That's all right.
So you highlight that comment. Yeah, I think it's strictly like a government conspiracy thriller. I don't think there's really any.
I want to watch it. I want to watch it, then I'll tell you what I think at least, Warren. That's for sure.
Yeah, high drama.
Paranoia movie, Warren says.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, good call. But yeah, I don't know. By the time she got killed, like I really had trouble identifying those two women as somebody other than Nancy Allen. I gotta admit, even when John Lithgow like killed that first girl and roll her over in the dirt, I was like, okay, like I didn't get it. Like that didn't strike me the first time. Like that was somebody else. I thought it was her, and he killed her, and that was that. Like it wasn't until later that I realized like it was another.
That
woman.
It was a different girl. Oh,
yeah, he was out here killing like random redheads.
But at the end, he did kill Nancy Allen's character, right?
Yeah, no, he did. Okay, but that's what I'm saying. But then again, at the phone booth, I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
What are we doing here? Like, you know what I mean?
Another thing that
why is she turning tricks in Grand Central Station? Right. Like, what the fuck happened? Like,
that lady who I really loved her performance, the prostitute. I just thought she was really good. By the way, I'd give her $30, but
yo, mind you, these stalls had mirrors and shit, and it looked like within the stall, like that was some next level shit, you know.
To me, that was a classic like horror set piece there with Lithgow in the bathroom stall about to choke that prostitute's life away. What I was gonna say is, okay, how did you guys read that? I'm gonna get vulgar here. She's sucking the sailor's dick right before he heads off to sea. Did he bust his nut early? And then, because he's like, you only get 10. He throws it at her, but she's like, what the fuck? I thought you were a sailor. It's like, why do you care if he busts his nut early? What? I didn't get that whole thing. Did I spend too much time thinking about that blowjob part?
Spent way too much time.
Yeah.
Well, then right afterwards, she's like, hey, where's my $30? It's like, I thought you were trying to be fucking secretive about this. You're not here screaming on your knees in this phone booth.
I thought it was pretty wild. In a phone booth in the train station, just so like, you know, right next John Lithgow is a secret. People can see the shit. So,
I love his like you said, Vern, his like little facial, like, you know, 5 minutes, okay. He was all good. He was all good with the situation.
He's putting the money to the I love that bit, but yeah, I guess that's kind of how this whole movie goes, which is here's the way I feel about it. As much as I enjoy the movie, and I'm glad we did it, I'm glad you guys watched it and we covered it. I was honestly a little bit like, oh, Criterion did make one of these. I was like, damn, like, because there's so many flaws with it. Like, I think if you say, why is it so respected by the people that respect it? Why does Tarantino name it as one of his top films of all time? It is the style. It's not necessarily like you're looking past a lot of stuff in the story. It's the style, it's the atmosphere, and it's Travolta's performance are going to be the key things. But there's a lot of issues, and I'm glad you guys felt the same way too.
Yeah, for sure. But the style, like one thing I just want to say about the style, like that scene where he's reenacting what happened on the bridge, right? And he's doing it through the sound and what happened. He's kind of like using the pencil as like, you know, what happened where. I thought that was brilliant, dude. And there's so many moments like that where you get him at his technical best, where he's either doing a shot or pulling off some technique. You're like, man, this dude, this works for me. Like this is amazing.
Talking about how he doesn't have his solely original voice, and I agree with you, but he's really excuse me, like one thing I'll say it like this. One thing, like when I'm doing research before I started my first podcast, it's like, how do you start a podcast? Like, listen to your favorite podcast and pick your favorite elements of those, but don't just do it to one. Do it to a bunch of different podcasts and pick, you know, the best things that you like about those, and you'll have an original thing and it'll put your own flavor on it. I do think I love the shit that he picks out. He picks out Hitchcock set pieces. He picks out Argento's like this shit, like these detail shots. That's an Argento thing that he uses in Sisters and a lot of different shit. But the split diopter, the split screen, the reason why I think he sticks to that, he's like, that's fucking mine. He's like, that's the one thing that it's like undeniably he popularized that and uses that. But at the same time, I'm not really disagreeing with you. I see exactly what you're saying, but I still think it works.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely, some of it's definitely cribbed and heavily borrowed, but I still think he pulls it off. Do y'all know anybody who did those 360-degree panning shots before he did? Like, is that his thing or is that somebody else's? Because I love that device.
I don't know. I know I'm thinking about like in Carrie when he did it when they're dancing and it's like spinning around the room and shit. I would assume someone did it. I've been on this Hitchcock kick. I'm trying to think if he ever
Yeah,
did
I
it.
was about to say like that would be my first one.
Hitchcock experimented with that at some point.
There's nothing that I can really. It's funny you said earlier, like you said something about Hitchcock. And, yeah, maybe it was someone before him. It's like shit. The more I dig into Hitchcock, and I realize like, oh no, he came out the gates. Like we're more familiar with his stuff from the 50s and early 60s, but he was doing big shit in Europe at like 1928. It's
Dude,
like like silent films and shit.
Yeah,
like
that's
he's
one thing.
always been there.
Tarantino said this during like when I was watching him speak about De Palma, like just doing some research for this show. Like he said that, and I thought this was really apt and 100% dead on. Like Hitchcock was kind of like hampered by the like the tools and the techniques of his time. You know what I mean? He really didn't get to do everything that he wanted to do, whereas De Palma really kind of had free reign and all those tools at his disposal and was like kind of find it out and figure out some of the things where you see like a guy,
and not just the technology, but the regulations. Or maybe you mentioned that, but yeah,
no, for sure, absolutely, like the violence and all that, like yeah, absolutely. So
which you see in some of his later work, like it gets more violent. He's going for where the codes are allowing it at the time.
Yeah.
But all right, I think we done did it, my brothers. Let's go ahead and rate this bad boy. Get up out this thing, and then you know what? I fucking forgot to do it. I think I was gonna do it at the beginning. I'm gonna run through the Horror Fest announcement for Blood Splatter Chatter real quick at the end of this bad boy. It is a lot of movies because this is the biggest, baddest Horror Fest of all time, and it's a long one, so we'll burn through it at the end. But Steph, my brother, the Daywalker, Mr. Link, where you at on Blowout 1981?
I will say the conversation helped bolster the score for this movie because it made certain things clear in terms of like more distinctive what he was trying to do at the time. It was not a bad film, but I was definitely kind of like, what's going on? A good portion of it. Like why? Like, why are you so invested in this? What's your stake in this? So I was feeling like a 3 out of 5, but based on the conversation, that have clarified some things for me. I'll give it a 3.69. I could give it. I could upon a rewatch. I can see me boosting it up, but now that I see, I respect De Palma doing what he did. Like I said, swing for the fences. It's not always gonna land, but at least you tried something new. At least you went for it. I respect that. So knowing, that this is what got Travolta hired, or isn't that you said that's why he hired for Pulp Fiction, Quentin Tarantino?
That's what Stu said. Did Tarantino say that, or you just?
I don't know. That's just me.
I bet that's what I thought.
It's like Tarantino always talks about that being Travolta's best performance. So I always feel like
he said it's the best performance in cinema history is what. But Tarantino, he was fucking fucking coked up in that interview. I think he said it was his best performance ever.
Dude, straight and like I feel like this interview, every interview, I feel like all right. You could say this like. He didn't necessarily cast him because of this performance, but if Travolta hadn't been in this movie, he probably wouldn't have been in.
I agree. Yeah, 100%.
I think that's a fair thing.
I think you're right to say he casted him because of this. I would agree with that. That's what made him.
That says something, So I think John Travolta gives a great performance in this movie. It's crazy that this is probably one of his stronger performances. I had never seen this before. I'm disappointed in myself, but it was definitely something worthy of watching and checking out. Even though I was kind of confused a lot, I respected the camera shots, the style, all that stuff. Definitely helped save it, so it's worth checking out.
Hell yeah, my brother. 3.69 for Missing Link. Stu, where you at, dude?
All right, so I think for me it's going to be. I think I'm going to go 3. I think I'm going to go with Pedro. 3.5 out of 5. A great movie, I think, in a technical sense, but a lot of like muddied storytelling. A subpar kind of like main character performance. Definitely like left me wanting more. But again, you see so many techniques and brilliant inventions that would come to be hallmarks of De Palma's work moving forward. So for that alone, I definitely think it's worth a watch. And like you said, dude, like this is one I'm so glad that I didn't know about, that I'm so glad I found out about and was able to watch. So thank you for that. But yeah, I think for me, like if you look at the Grand Canon of De Palma's work, I think this one falls a little short. So 3.5 out of 5 for your boy.
All right. It's so weird, man. I had a strange experience with this movie. Like I said, I don't know where the fuck I'm at. I think I am right there with you, Steph, at like a 3.69, 3.75. Because one thing I didn't say, as much as we've been praising Travolta's performance, do you guys feel like he was almost like lost in the movie towards the end? Right? There's a moment where it's like either you like I don't know, he's like doesn't feel like the main character or something, or he's definitely not very likable. Like he grows less and less likable as the movie goes because of his obsession, and I don't know, he becomes more of a dick. It's weird. I wonder how much the insomnia had to do with that, if anything at all, or if that's all the writing.
I remember there's a certain, he's at the police station talking to the dude. I remember there's like he's in that purple cool ass jacket, and I remember they did a close up of his shot. I was like, man, you look tired or drugged out, you know?
Yeah,
but it
looked like he was on pills,
bro. Yeah, exactly. When they came and got him after the when the news reporter was like, man, let me talk to you like 1 second, and he was like ready to go, and like I guess all his tapes have been released. Like same deal. Like bro looked strung out for sure. Like
there was a couple
more so than any other points in the movie.
What I thought you were gonna say, Steph, is just like that Travolta charm. Like early in the movie, you see it; it's on display. Like when he's talking to Nancy Allen for the first time, like I would go home with this guy. Like he wants her to lay in bed. I would lay in the hospital bed.
Yeah,
if he told me to.
And then
like you don't get any of that.
Table, yeah.
Don't be wrong. That's part of the movie. You're not supposed to get it. I understand that, but he's not likable. You're not aligned with him by the end. I could think that's the word I'm looking for.
It's almost like a Walter White thing, you know, where he's the good guy turn into this despicable, like kind of like the pieces of shit that you are against.
What's funny, Vertigo, one of Hitchcock's biggest movies, another one that deals the most with obsession too, where you're like, why is he doing this the whole time? Like James Stewart is hard not to like, but at the end of it, you're like, why is he? You know what I mean? Why are we aligned with him? And I wonder if that is an influence or something that he's going for. Anyway, this is what I was gonna say. First time I watched it, I was around like a 3.5, and then I watched it again, and like my wife is sleeping in the room. She's laying down in the room. And at one point, I just like say out loud by myself, I'm like, this is fucking awesome. And she's like, what? I'm like, oh, nothing. I was talking to myself. But like, it's just something like in that moment, that day, like it just hit me. I was like, dude, this is like killer, like badass shit. Like at the end when Travolta's running in slow motion, like that. I'm like, it's all like adding up to a cool moment. And I really ate up that scream bit. And I was like, at that, if I would have graded it right after then, I'd have done it like a 4.5. I was like, masterpiece. But like thinking about it more, and really like a lot of those plot holes, they are there. And I did watch the movie again today, which what does that say to watch a movie 3 times in a couple weeks? It probably doesn't mean shit that third watch. I'm just over the fucking movie, but a lot of the shit did stick out to me a lot more. So I'll go ahead and I'll go there with a 3.75. It's a movie. It's got its flaws, but it's one like how is this not like something that everybody's seen just because of the people behind the camera? But 3.69 from Link, a 3.5 from Stu, and a 3.75 from me, and a 3.5 from Two Gun Pedro. Interesting. It's kind of interesting. We're all right here. Like I said, I'm surprised, a little bit surprised it gets praised as much as it does because of all.
Yeah, I saw like when I was like, I was like, let me see what other people think about this, and everybody on YouTube. I didn't even watch it because it was like Brian put De Palma's forgotten masterpiece. I was like, well, I'm not gonna, come on, man. Like, and there was like 2 or 3 videos titled like that. I was like, I don't, I feel like that's OD. Maybe because like people don't know about this movie, like they feel like they can call it his forgotten masterpiece, but I don't. I think it's definitely a forgotten film, but not a masterpiece. I think it's definitely a good insight into who he would become. But
like, I think that's why I prefer this over Just to Kill. Is like I think the editing was a lot better, or like the way what he was doing with the camera work was a lot more experimental and more sophisticated compared to Just to Kill. If you're looking at the year, this is quite a well-crafted film for its time. You know, like especially.
I love like they really show you that at the beginning. Like when you see, first of all, he's satirizing the slasher genre that was just born. Like he said, this just happened. He's already commenting on it. But like
Girls
that's the
dancing in the
movies that are
window.
going on at the time. But I thought that too. Like, look at what this guy did. But this is looks pretty like a Hollywood budget movie, not some small indie slasher thing. It had a $20 million budget, a huge marketing campaign behind it, and it didn't do that well. Like it was supposed to be originally, it was going to be this small $5 million movie that De Palma wanted to make, and then Travolta said he wanted to do it, and De Palma says it turned into a much bigger thing.
Wow.
Oh, you know what? Really, there was one nitpick at the beginning of the film with the horror shit. When the dude's creeping through the windows, looking at the girls dance, and then there's a couple having sex. The dude had his underwear on, bro, and we hopped up. I'm just saying, I know you can't show everything, but it's like
right.
I didn't want to see the whitey tighty on the waist.
Right. That's hilarious. I'll forgive him because that's the movie within the movie.
I felt like they tried to be like cheeky on purpose, like like the girl like ran straight up to the window and was like, "Oh, somebody's out there." It's like, girl, you didn't see his ass right on the other side of the glass. Like that was great.
I swear there was somebody out there.
Yeah,
that shit was so funny, and like even the guy that you see in the mirror.
Yeah, I paused the screen at that point. I'm like, oh, what do we got going on here? What kind of movie is this? I was like, let me get a look at the killer. And then like I found out like then you get that scream, dude. It was so good. Like I love that. Kind of wall. Yeah.
Oh god.
So funny. So funny.
All right. Speaking of Brian De Palma, speaking of Carrie, we're gonna have a lot of Brian De Palma. Well, this is the last thing that I want to say on the man before we move on. This might be, I gave it a 3.75, and this might be one of my favorite movies of his. Because as much as I love Sisters is just as flawed as this, but stylistically, it's just like fucking incredible. And it's 1972, which I give it a lot of credit for that. And it's an even smaller budget. But like I said, I'm not the biggest Untouchables guy or Scarface guy. Like I like his old school thriller shit, but this right here is by far my favorite Brian De Palma film. This is one of my favorite horror films of all time. I hope it holds up. Haven't watched it in a little bit. I've got a lot of different opinions these days, but very excited to be kicking off Horror Fest. Yeah. Stephen King and Carrie. I'll go ahead and say it now. I do plan to do like we'll talk Carrie and then we'll do some Stephen King trivia. I think it's the first. I think Robbie's going to be here, and it should be a shit ton of fun. So there's so much to talk about. Stephen King got a million different things that we've all are fairly familiar with. And then I gave all the homies a pick, and I'm so glad that Steph picked this one. Happy Death Day 1, Happy Death Day 2, which
they're fun films. So.
Just got fun. 2 in the mail. I've never seen 2. I loved 1. I thought 1 was so much fun. But
you haven't seen 2 yet?
No, I've yet to see number 2. So
I'm
really looking forward to it. I saved it. I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to watch it because I knew we were doing it as a double feature.
And you know, it's not. I will say it's not. It's not as good as the first one. Not, you know, don't go in there thinking it's. But it's cool how it's like they set the sequel up. You know, how it works within the framework they set up in the first movie, which was
right.
Cool.
Well, that's one thing I'm curious about. It's such a cool premise. For those that haven't seen it, it's basically Groundhog's Day as a slasher, the originals, and it's a horror comedy. It's gonna be fun, and that's pretty much my goal. I should say going into this is I want to have like the most variety of decades and subgenres, and just like the most variety of different shit to talk about. Like,
oh yeah,
I know Robbie's trying to like do this transgressive thing, and I looked at my list afterwards after I changed it when you guys added your shit. It's not that transgressive. Robbie's is. I've got a couple.
What's my pick for this one?
You'll see when I get to it.
Okay.
we got Candyman. Robbie's doing Hellraiser the Monday before. Then we're doing Candyman, Clive Barker back to back, and then this is your pick, Stu.
That's my pick.
This is your fucking.
You gave me the choice between Under the Skin, and I thought you gave me a choice between what would be.
I said you could pick anything.
I thought I remember you talking about.
No, I did. No, I didn't, dude. I said what I said was that if I gave you a pick, you would pick Silence of the Lambs, and I couldn't do it. We had too many.
So you didn't give me a pick. You just gave me a choice of 2 movies.
I thought you knew,
and disguised it as a pick.
Yeah. Okay. I thought you knew. I said this too. You just didn't get what I was talking about.
Okay, that's cool.
Oh fuck! And then the following night, thanks for making this reveal very awkward. So I appreciate all that. And then the following night, which Stu's no longer invited to, is Friday the 13th, Part 2, and we're going to do some trivia, Jason trivia on that too. And then this one nobody has seen but me. This movie I just watched one night. this is what I was saying earlier. There's sometimes when you just stumble across a movie, you're like, you give it a lot more credit than it might deserve. And we'll find out if this is the case with this one. I just saw it and I was like, well, this is badass. And I've heard other people like it, but it's definitely a deep cut, some dark magic, like chamber piece, all set in this house kind of a film. It's really cool. Okay. I think you guys might dig it. And then this one right here, we did this on DHS a long time ago. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do it because, you know, most of us have talked about it. And then I went back and looked. I'm like, let me look and see who was on that show. It was me and Scarphead and Robbie. That was it. So I'm like, oh, fuck, nobody's seen this. So this is like just a really fun anthology from 2019. Like this will be I wanted to get an anthology on just because they're fun to talk about. And this is probably one of the best ever made, in my opinion. We can debate it that night, but it's a lot of fun. It's really good. And that Hills Have Eyes, we're doing this whole Wes Craven mini fest within Horror Fest. Dylan's doing A Nightmare on Elm Street, and then Robbie is doing, and Stu will be there for it. I'm so excited for Stu to watch this movie. What is the name of it? Last House on the Left. Robbie's doing that. Then I'm doing Hills Have Eyes here. And then the following week, I said, fuck it. I got so excited when I realized I can do whatever I want. I'm putting Scream on too. So this is like one of my favorite movies of all time. So get ready for me to fanboy the fuck out over this. But if you guys want to talk shit, that's fine. I can handle it.
No, I love Scream.
And then we're doing Videodrome to get some Cronenberg up in this. And then this was Fable's pick, which I can't really remember this movie, but I know it's incredible. It's another one. I bought the Criterion for it, a very highly respected film that I'm dying to rewatch, man. The Others from 2001. And then it all ends with the Ty West triple feature, X, Pearl, Maxine. I'm assuming Maxine's going to be out streaming by then. If it's not, we'll figure something else out, but I'm sure it will be. But really, this will be fun to look through. I've reviewed X on this channel already. I did it on Dylan's channel. I've did it on Instagram. I'm probably not even going to watch it again for this because I know my fucking thoughts on it. But I'm dying to see Pearl again. I haven't seen it in a long time, and I'm dying to watch Maxine again and to hear you guys' thoughts. And then 2 more bonus episodes at some point on a Sunday with my buddies Peter and Eric from Two Geeks Different Streets. We'll be showing Peter for the first time Evil Dead. Eric, it's like his favorite franchise ever. Right. So these are 2 banger ass movies we're doing with them. And then towards the end of Horror Fest, neither of them have seen Hereditary. So last year we did Barbarian with those 2 and they never seen it. So that's what I'm trying to do is like find these movies that are like really cool to show people that have like wild twists and shit like that.
Have any of you guys seen The Strange Things About the Johnsons yet?
No. What's that?
It was like Ari Aster, like, because this came out like 2018 and like 2010, 2011, Ari Aster had did this short film. Like, this is why I've always been shocked. Like, man, I can't believe this guy's a name because first it was very. It's not horror. It's horror in a sense, but you guys should look it up. It's definitely very taboo.
Interesting. Yeah. What is it like? Is it like racist? I'm getting racist.
So, a dad and his son are having an incestual relationship, and then the son's blackmailing. The dad tries to cut it off, and then the son's like blackmailing him later on in life when they're all grown up. And the son grows up, has a wife and daughter, and he's still trying to. It was I think he said it was done for a film project, and the topic was some like taboo subjects or something like that, and that's what he went for. But when this came out, I've always been shocked that I was like, man, I can't believe this dude that made such a weird film is like a big name, or a semi-big name. He's making a name for himself.
Because he came out with, in my opinion, 2 of the fucking most brilliant movies that anybody's ever made. This to me is like probably my favorite horror movie, one of my favorite movies. Midsummer, I might even like even better. Yeah. So it's like you do whatever the fuck you want after you do, but I don't know. I got to see it. I remember you saying that to me years ago. Actually,
it's worth checking out. I want to hear you guys' thoughts.
I'm looking at my camera and I think my child has woke up, so I gotta go. I don't see her anymore. I gotta go find out where the hell she is. But hell yeah, man! I appreciate everybody. Blowout 1981, and then next week, what do we got going on? Oh, this Sunday. This Sunday with my buddy Peter from Two Geeks Different Streets, episodes 1 through 5, Haunting of Hill House. I'm on episode 3. This is just terrifying. This is like the scariest thing that I've covered. I forgot how fucking scary this stuff is. And then next week, we'll Flanagan. and then we'll flan again, people. We're doing Oculus the following week before I finish up Hill House the following Sunday again with my buddy Peter. And then last night, bada bang, bada boom, my brothers. Here, go ahead and tell people, Lila, tell people about your show. I got to get this baby. I don't know where she is.
Man.
I'll be right back.
Yeah, last night, Supreme Clientele on Dr. Doom's Fan Club on YouTube. Me and my boy Link, breaking down weekly comic books. Also, sometimes the comic books storylines and arcs of old. But we tried to stay on topic last night. We were kind of all over the place, but man, it was one of my favorite shows. I had a great time.
Yeah, it was a very good conversation.
Yeah, we talked about everything from crossover to Images, Donny Cates crossover to Wolverine and Deadpool. So, cover everything in the sun, man. Just if you like impassioned comic book talk, come check us out every Wednesday night, 9:30 p.m. Eastern on Dr. Doom's Fan Club.
Well said.
Found that baby.
That
baby
baby.
Found that baby.
Found the baby. She is not happy.
Just
Say hi.
woke up.
She's pissed.
She's like, Dad.
Oh, I feel exploited. Exploitation. What is it? I did not think that would happen.
I feel the same way, bro. I feel the same way.
All right. All right. You guys are the best. I love you, and we'll see you next time. Oculus, Haunting of Hill House. See you.